All right, we are live. If you are out there watching us, say hello. Let's see.
Hello, everyone, and good evening.
I'm trying to see if I can look for option. I knew that was going to happen. Try to look from Facebook, and then I get all the feedback. Um, so we'll wait just a couple of more minutes for a couple of more people to join. I see the numbers are starting to climb on up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If you are out there, tell us hello. We would like to see who's there with us. I see people, but I don't see who the people are.
I hear you.
All right. Probably about one more minute and then we'll go ahead and start. Let's see, the numbers are climbing. Oh, there we go. Hi, Nisha. How are you this evening? Thank you for joining. Hi, Shaquita. How are you? Hello, Mary. How are you? I put hi, every. All right, so we're going to go ahead and start to dive in. So, if you are here for the first time, welcome to the Sugar and Spice podcast and show. This is our third episode. And if you need to know where to catch us at, you can catch us on Facebook Live, YouTube, as well as on Spotify and all the other podcast streaming apps and activities. My name is Mimi. I am a counselor by trade of social work, also in life coach certification, and I am the founder of Azure Wellness Community Connections, which is a health and wellness business.
And I am Violina Shakir Burgess. I'm a licensed clinical mental health counselor. a clinical certified military counselor, and a hypnotherapist. I'm the founder and owner of Limitless Counseling, which is a mental health practice which provides telehealth therapy in North Carolina. And yeah, Mimi, tell us where your business is located, because we always.
Oh, yeah, that might be important too. So my business is located out of Maryland. However, we are not limited only just to Maryland. We offer services basically all across the United States and hopefully international one day. All right, so I'm getting a message. My sound is weird. I'm not really sure. I might be
Sounds like a little muffled.
a
Not
little
like muffled.
muffled. All right, let's see. If I fix this audio. Not really sure it's going to let me.
So while you're doing that, I'll just introduce us and kind of start.
Okay.
Okay, so the subject tonight is that we are not our grandparents. And so our premise behind that was to talk about the differences that have happened in between, like when our grandparents were younger, married, having children, having families, what kind of society looked like, as well as like marriage, relationships, gender roles, parenting, compared to what it looks like now. And so one of the, I guess, the big things that have changed that we're going to dive right into now is more men being active as parents with the children, as well as the rising numbers of men becoming single parents. And some of the things that contribute to that, of course, is the rise in divorce. And also people having children out of wedlock, deciding to being co-parents, even if they're not going to be together, and men playing a significant role in that. Also, a lot of it has to do with, just moving forward with men's rights. I know that growing up, it was kind of unheard of, or you didn't really see it too often where it was a single dad. And it just seemed like it was kind of natural that if there was a divorce that, the moms would automatically get the kids, even if the dads wanted to fight for them. So there's been a lot of progression with men's rights and being able to get custody of their children, or to have, mutual custody of their children. Outside of the single dads, it's also, a lot of men are playing more of an active role in the house. Taking care of the children. There are some stay-at-home dads, helping facilitate like transportation to activities, being more active in school. It seems like, back in the time when my grandparents were, newly getting married and having their families, and even in my mom and dad's time period, that, a lot of the responsibility for children, household, fell on the females. And now it seems like it's evening out a lot more. Also, one of the big factors is just how much women are working multiple jobs, and the price of just being able to live has gone up so significantly that it's really hard to have a household where it's just one parent working. And so like things are having to be divided more equally. Also, there's a lot of situations where the woman is the breadwinner, making the most money in the household.
Bosses.
Would you say?
I said bosses.
Yes, we bossing up, ladies. We bossing up. And so that does change the dynamic of the household somewhat. And a lot of times, men are able to step in and are more willing to step in to take care of some of the other things that their wife or woman can't take care of because of the demands of being the breadwinner.
Absolutely. I wonder if anybody is on there who knows what it feels like as a woman to be the breadwinner and carry the family on your shoulders and on your back. And sometimes this is not even because you are a single woman. Sometimes it happens even when you have a husband at home. So we would
Husband,
definitely.
boyfriend, or significant other.
Oh yeah, I forgot. Husband, wives, Hollies, all of those kind of things. So another thing that we're seeing in these days that has changed for times is we are seeing women proposing to men where they are saying, I'm tired of waiting on you.
Mhm.
I want what I want, and I'm coming in and I'm going to take what I want. A lot of women I see, especially on social media, are still in the old times where they feel like we're not breaking those traditions. They don't care how much you pay them or what you tell them. They are not getting on their knees and they are not proposing to a man if it was to save their life. But that is something that has changed from times that we are used to before, because most traditions, what you see is the woman will be with a man forever, waiting for him to propose. And a lot of times she gets resentful and angry with him because he's taken too long to propose. And at that point, by the time they get to the wedding, sometimes the marriage doesn't even last long because everybody is already angry and resentful. Another thing that we are seeing newer in these days is changes when it comes to the representation of love. Particularly, I'm speaking to right now, which would be the LGBT love. When we were younger, we knew there were aunts and uncles who were in the lifestyle, but it was something that was not talked about, nor did you see it in the mainstreams of social media, at home, in families. It was the best kept secret, that secret where but you don't talk about it kind of thing. And that is something that has changed a lot these days. We have transitioned into being more of an open community, a more welcoming community, although it's still shunned upon as, for a lot of people for various reasons. Things have definitely changed, and people are less likely to be scrutinized for their choices in their partner these days. And we have some laws that have been passed that allows people from the LGBT population to get married and adopt children, and those things were not the same as they were. Right. And we're even seeing children coming out at younger ages now because of this change and this openness that has happened. Another lifestyle we're starting to see more of is the poly lifestyle. And if you're not really familiar with what poly is, it's basically just the practice or the desire to be intimate with more than one person. And that can be a joint thing that they do, and some people do it separately, but still have their primary unit. This is another thing which is different because most of us grew up knowing that relationships and marriage was a monogamous thing. You had your one person, and if you weren't with that one person, it was considered to be cheating and deceitful and all of those things. You still have women and men who still practice that, but poly lifestyle is definitely something that is becoming a little bit more open than it was before, and it actually has various names to it, if that would be the proper way to say it. I'm not really sure what the proper way is to say that, but that is definitely something that
I'm sorry, I just want to interject and say that, well, various names, different alternative lifestyles where it looks different. Mm-hmm.
Right. So I feel like in the poly world, there's like different ways to break down how people are doing it. Kind of same thing like when you get into the LGBT population, they start breaking down all these different variances of identities and which category and group that you fit in. So many definitely to keep up with, you know, a lot of people really wouldn't even understand without living that lifestyle or actually diving into some research on those lifestyles. But a lot of people, what I hear is they choose poly because it's about more than just the love, right? You know, when we think about relationships and monogamy, it's always about the love that you have for your person. But some people are doing it now because there's more money in the household. If we think about what Balina spoke to about needing more money and having a one income household is challenging these days. Some people choose to have three. You have three people bringing in an income that's three times the money that it would be if it was just one person, or an extra addition to if it was just two. There's more quality time to go around for the partners, and then if there's kids, there's more people to help raise kids. So there are various reasons why people are choosing to be into these lifestyles, and it is definitely more open and welcome than it has been in the past.
I would also like to add that, you know, some of these, you know, like the kind of like the poly lifestyle has been around for a while in certain religions.
This is true.
Certain religions have done it for a long time, but I think that it's becoming more mainstream now, and not necessarily tied to a religion.
That is true.
And in those, and in a lot of those religions, not all, but a lot of those religions, it was more focused on men being able to have more than one partner. Versus,
Right.
you know, now it's, you know, a little bit of both men and female.
Right. I be seeing them women with two wives. Hey, y'all better go on and get it.
Women with two husbands. Hey,
listen, one is enough for me. I'm all set. So
I hear you. I hear you. So that's a lot of, you know, that has changed a lot. We talk about kind of diving into some parenting changes. A lot of times, you know, with kids, with now that most families do have to have two parents working, that it can cut down on the access and ability to navigate some of these extracurricular activities that maybe when I was growing up or like my mom was growing up that they were able to do. A lot of families have very intense schedules, and, you know, having access and the time to be able to facilitate these activities or the funds is a problem because, you know, I felt like it used to be a lot of stuff was offered through the school. Now it seems like there are things have shifted to where parents really have to seek out private lessons, private activities, community teams. I don't know how it is up there, but in North Carolina, like you're not even able to play sports for the school until you're like in high school. They don't even offer in elementary school and middle school. And like, you know, I played soccer till from a time I was like 5 until the 8th grade, just with the school. So then it was less expensive.
Right, definitely something.
What'd you say? I'm sorry.
I'm about to say, so definitely something that has changed over times when we were younger, and I'm not even that old, so.
Well, we're not gonna do that, young. You know, I'm younger than you, Bylina stuff tonight, but yes, you are.
See, I wasn't even trying to. I wasn't even gonna go there and all. You know,
shade. Because kids are in less activities, sometimes it's causing a increase in a rise in like the latchkey kids, the kids that have to come home and kind of, you know, work on their homework, try and fix themselves something to eat while they're waiting for their parents to come home. or, take care of siblings. Now that's something that's kind of happened across time. But we definitely see a significant rise in that with just the amount of time parents are having to work in order to be able to make ends meet and provide. Um, because kids are not doing a lot of extracurricular activities, not all kids, but some, uh, children are spending a lot of time being entertained by electronics, which makes it difficult for parents to really be able to, monitor what they're exposed to, because kids these days is like they come out of like the second grade in kindergarten with like a PhD in electronics, because they know more sometimes than we do, because they use them so much for school. Also, the amount and the increase, I've seen it even from like, kindergarten starting up, the amount of work that kids are sent home with, the homework really cuts into that time that would be used for extracurricular activities. So a lot of parents kind of spend their weekends doing it, taking kids to lessons and other things, because when they get home it's really just about trying to cook dinner, trying to get the homework done, and then trying to get the nightly routine done so that they can wake up and do it again. What are your thoughts about that, Minima?
Yeah, it's definitely a very hard cycle to be on. How many of you out there know what it's like to be on that continuous cycle of knowing how to work, working and trying to maintain the activities of raising the children? Anybody, somebody, talk to us. Yeah, really quiet tonight.
Well, this kind of rolls into the other aspect, the next topic, which is, like when we were growing up, we were a part of a lot of activities. We come from a family where it's like, keep them busy. But it took a lot of extended family and community that helped facilitate that. So like when we were going to dance class, grandparents picking up and bringing, martial arts class, getting rides with different family members that were going to class, even if your parent couldn't make it. And so now it just seems like there's a strong lack of community. It takes a village to raise a child, but it doesn't seem like a lot of parents and families really have that village. A lot of people are really out here trying to manage it with little to minimal support. And so I think that also definitely affects family. Also, with the community, it's like some people and a lot of people that I know and that I work with, they don't even really interact with neighbors, and the kids in their neighborhood and the families in their neighborhood, which, historically was a part of the village. I don't know about you, Mimi, but I know that there were times, and this is before cell phones, being out with my friends, that my mom would hear like, I saw Lena at such and such before I would even get home. She already knew what I was doing because people were looking out and people knew like, I don't know if she's supposed to be hanging out there.
Right. And definitely those times where you'd get a beating by the neighbor before you got home and got a beating by your mother. Times definitely have changed with stuff like that.
And I think that, some of that, definitely that having to be accountable and knowing that, you can get feedback from, people in the community, extended family, really keeps and can keep a child on the right track. Because I know, definitely for me, my motivation was like, if I get in trouble, I'm gonna have to hear it from like 25 people about what I did, because aunties, uncles gonna call, grandparents, and so that is a little bit of a motivating factor that doesn't seem to be there as much anymore. Mm-hmm. Another thing with the lack of community, I think that parents now have a lot of access to their children where historically they didn't, before cell phones. And I know I'm aging myself by saying that. Before cell phones and stuff. If your child left the house, you had to count that they were going to go where they were really going, and that they would be back, and that they would make good choices. And there wasn't, cell phone tracking. There wasn't you couldn't call them at any point in time while they were out. And so there was just a different level of trust, and a level of, I guess, security of feeling like, your child was going to make good choices.
Right. Mary said, you got that right. Yeah, definitely.
And I think the last part about the community, LAHA community, or the village, is that, parents having the time to interact and to really get to know their children's friends. I know that, my core group of friends, my mom knew them. They were like her extended babies. And the same with my friends' parents with me. And so it was really, she really knew the people that I was hanging out with and that I was around. And my work with a lot of families and a lot of teens and preteens, it almost seems like some parents feel unempowered to take that step, to be like, no, you can't go if I don't meet them or their parents, because a lot of other parents are not willing to take that step, and they still want their child to be social. Have you seen that?
Right. And that definitely relates into that guilty parenting thing that we're going to be talking about. So another talk, when we think about changes and we say we are not our grandparents, and even in some cases when we say we are not our parents as well, parenting styles have changed over the years. We have parents who come from parents that were raised a lot stricter than what we are used to. And a lot of times children didn't really have a voice. They didn't have feelings. Their needs were not being met, and parents definitely wouldn't even apologize either. But now in these days, we are seeing things a little bit more different, where parents are giving their children the right and the freedom to have feelings, to express how they feel, which is not what happened a lot many years ago. Another thing that I was going to talk about is parents are apologizing to their children when they are doing things wrong. And this could be, slip of anger, disciplining them for things that they really shouldn't have got disciplined for, and really taking accountability for their actions, where years ago you would not have seen that happen. It was always that thing where the parent was right regardless of how things went. And a lot of us grew up knowing sometimes that the parent was not right, or they may have not handled something accordingly, but we kind of had to suck it up and deal with it because we didn't have feelings. Dare you not talk back, dare you not breathe hard, dare you not do anything but sit there. And it's not right, but it's not wrong, because everybody had various levels in which of how they dealt things. But I think that plays a major role into the difference that you see in today's parents. It's a different, definitely when you see grandparents, because even for my mom, the way she grandparents with my daughter, I'd be like, wait a minute, because it wasn't like that when I was growing up. But what do you do? But the best part about parents changing and not continuing some of that history is children are being more of who they are. They are developing better social skills than they may have had before. Some of them have better self-esteem. Some of them are going off into places and doing things that you really wouldn't have seen. You have other people who may have possibly grown up in that authoritarian style, who had to sit down and shut up and deal with things, who went off to college and got buck wild. And now all of a sudden she's in college, she's drinking, she's doing all these wild things, and she's pregnant, and she's getting out of getting kicked out of the house. Or you got, Mr. Rico Suave, who's so fine to the girls, and he got all this money, but he doesn't even know how to manage relationships or be in relationships with women. Because of his experiences that he had at home, with his mother and father, or being taught that a man is not supposed to have feelings or emotion. So a lot of them don't even know how to show that to the women. And that has led to some parents like myself, that I can definitely speak to this, where we transition into a guilty parenting style, right? And it's guilty for various reasons. We feel guilty because we're trying to discipline and do things for our kids, and we want to make sure that we're trying to do the right thing. And then we feel guilty because we don't have that time to dedicate to our children the same way that our parents may have dedicated in the past. So it's easier for us to just buy and give them what they want, or let them have their way, because we get ourselves into this guilty pattern, in which we don't really need to be in. So that's something to work on, and to look at, life experience and patterns, and know that, listen, as a parent, a single parent, a not single parent, children have to have boundaries in place. They have to have rules in place, and they have to be handled accordingly. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you don't have to hear their opinion, or you don't have to consider their feelings, or they have to go through trauma to actually be within those guidelines. So it's definitely important, if you are a parent out there who feels guilty sometimes for telling your child no, or disciplining them and taking things away, don't do that on yourself. If you feel guilty because you are working so much, you're going to school, you're trying to bring home the money, and you don't have time to spend that quality time with your kids, don't beat on yourself either. Find a balance and make it work.
I think that it's also, a good thing to point out, in my work with a lot of families and children and teens and preteens, is really being able to helping them educate their child that just because I'm not agreeing with you does not mean I don't hear you. Because when you get to those preteens and those teens, and even some children, it's like, if the answer is still no, then you must not understand. You must not be listening to me. No, I hear you, but the answer is still going to be no. And it being important to not only give your child what you didn't have, but also to give them the values, morals, and the structure that you did have, that was positive, that positively affected you.
This is true. Definitely true. Definitely true. And I think even with that, social media has played a big role in those types of changes.
Yes, I mean, social media has played a big role. We're going to talk a little bit more about how social media has really kind of affected and glamorized a lot of substance abuse among the younger generation, and how it has kind of affected marriages and families. I mean, I think that, well, I'm not going to date myself too much. In my lifetime, there was a crack epidemic. And I think that now we are in an opioid epidemic. But I think that also there's a lot of, substance abuse, drug use on TV, in the music, a lot of kind of glorifying the use of all these various drugs. And so we do see a increasing rate of younger people using harder drugs and becoming, developing it into severe addicts at a higher rate. Um, and a lot of this stuff, when I used to work, because I worked in a lot of different areas of mental health, but working in the mental health hospital here in Raleigh, North Carolina, working in group homes. I mean, the kids used to always say that, I can get anything at school. It is easier for me to get hard stuff than it is for me to try and get alcohol or cigarettes. And so, it just seems like with this newer generation, the lack of education about how serious they're experimenting with these serious drugs are not there. I mean, we had stuff like DARE, we had like, what is it? Moms Against Drunk Driving. I mean, all types of programming that would kind of teach you the negative side effects of getting into some of these things, where I'm not sure if there is a lot of that going on now. Also, I think that, kids are really idolizing some of these musicians, some of these, actresses, famous people, whether it be sports, all that, instead of having more local family or community role models. And so they are mimicking a life that may not even be real. It could be just the facade that these people are putting on, but they don't actually live that life now. And so being able to talk with kids and educate them about that. As far as the substance abuse in the families, I think that we do see an increasing number, especially after the pandemic. But the pandemic, puts everything in a different category. An increasing number of children in Child Protective Services custody. I think when we were growing up, because it was such a kind of, children didn't really communicate too much, and it was more of a like a you should be seen and not heard situation for a lot of us, that it did seem like, children were allowed to stay in unhealthy situations longer than they are now, because I think that they are, basically speaking up and advocating for themselves, whether it be with a community member, whether it be with a teacher, whether it be, with a relative. And so we have definitely seen those numbers go up. And of course, in a lot of those cases, there is some sort of substance abuse involved.
Right. Because those parents are really so far into that substance abuse that they really just can't even function as parents. I think we probably seen more functioning addicts back in the days than we actually do now. And I think a lot of people were a little bit more afraid back then to lose their kids than they are now. It's like that addiction takes over and it doesn't really matter. So we're wondering, does anybody else out there have something?
Good.
What? I'm like, why am I delaying in my sound?
I think there's a little bit of a delay.
Oh,
I think there's a little bit of delay.
Gotcha. Somebody else can tell us in the comments. Go ahead.
Now, I was just going to say before you moved on that it's also a lot of it has been affected. I mean, I feel like, the people like abusing the Xanax, the Klonopin, the Percocets, the Oxys that may initially have been prescribed for a condition, but then they're not really educated about the fact that it is addictive, and then it ends up, turning into an addiction, as well as a lot of kids are stealing these prescriptions and selling them at school or using them with friends.
That is true. That is definitely different compared to before. So, is there anybody else who can tell us about something that they know that is different these days than what they remember it to be when they were kids? I don't know if there's a delay still in me talking or if nobody just wants to talk to us tonight. But I see
I
people
don't think
on.
much of a delay.
Okay, because it looks like it's delaying on my screen, so that's why it's hard for me to tell if I'm actually delaying or not. Okay, so we're going to just dive in at this point to going ahead and closing out this show. So we're going to start with some tips on how to create a relationship balance.
Well, I think that, we've discussed a lot of different dynamics that have changed in relationships over, the decades. And I think that it's really important for people to have the important conversations and ask important questions when embarking on a relationship, just to see whether or not you and your spouse are on the same page. How do you want to raise your children? What are the roles going to be within the household? What are your goals? What are your finances look like? Religion. What are your spending habits? Careers, and of course, sex is also important to talk about as well. But I think that people can really have the freedom these days to define their and designing it in a way where they feel respected, honored, feel truly. A lot of people are not feeling of these really strict gender roles and really strict relationship and marriages structures. And so I think that it's important to have the conversations and define what you want your relationship to look like, and then do it regardless of what other people say and other people's opinions.
Absolutely. So Algani J says one thing he wants to know is what is a woman's relationship like with their parents, when you're going through those series of questions and getting to know your partner. And I think that is very interesting because knowing the history that someone has with their parents will definitely speak to some of the trauma that they may or may not have because of their parents. Because you have a lot of people who say, "Oh, I don't speak to my parents and I don't care," but there's a whole lot of things to unpack behind that. I don't care, and that history of what led to them not speaking. Mary said that today it's no discipline with kids. And Erica also said, you are correct. It is limited discipline. Yes, because you have some of those kids out there that they don't even know what it's like. They're fighting teachers, they're fighting their parents, they're fighting people on the street. They don't want to work, they don't want to do anything. And you even got kids who get a little bit disrespectful and will tell their parent that they will call child protective services if their parents try to defend them. So parents, you have some parents who are really scared to discipline, or you have some parents who fall into that guilty parenting pattern. And then you have some parents that's honestly realistically dealing with their generational trauma, and they are still trying to grow up while their kids are growing up. That's a whole deeper topic to go into. So when we're talking about parenting, I did mention a little bit earlier that you have to be patient with yourself, especially when you are working and juggling a lot of things and trying to be the best parent that you can be. And I'm speaking to everybody out there, but I'm talking to myself all at the same time because I beat myself up a lot of times for a lot of reasons when parenting. So be patient with yourself. Do your best to create a routine and stick to it the best that you can. If you have a partner who is helping and being supportive, let let me say that again, let them. Okay, stop trying to be in control. Okay, always remember we need to instill morals, values, boundary, and discipline in these children's. Okay, it does not have to be the same way that some people have experienced it. It does not involve abuse. It doesn't mean that you have to beat them and leave marks and do all of those crazy things just to be able to instill morals, values, boundaries, and disciplining these kids. Understand that all children are not the same. So the way that somebody else parents their kids, the way you may parent your older kid may not be the same way that you parent your younger kid. It's just like anything that we experience in life. Every individual is different and something needs to happen different for that individual. And if I sure we all may know, if you have siblings, you all grew up with the same parent, but you all turned out differently. And that's because everybody is different and everybody develops in who they are. So that is just a key that I like to tell parents who have multiple kids. You can't do the same thing for Jack that you did for Jane because it may not work for Jane and it may not work for Jack. Okay. Then remember to protect your children and let them know the things that they're saying on social media and TV is not necessarily a safe thing at this moment in time in the world. We have to remind them what it means to not want to be like the people that we're seeing on TV, and we need to know what it means that money don't come fast. We need to know that smoking cigarettes and popping bottles like the people that we see on TV is not something that is healthy. It's things that we don't like to talk about with our kids, but it's things that we have to talk about with our kids. I would say my mother was a very, very strict mother, but she was also that mother who educated me compared to some of my friends who parents didn't educate them and did not have those conversations. And we all turned out different. Some of them started having kids and doing all kinds of things as early as ninth grade. I didn't have my daughter until my 30s. So that speaks to a parent who educates and makes sure that their children are aware. Letting your children be aware doesn't mean that you're telling them that they can go out and do those things. That's where boundaries and discipline come in place. It's okay to talk to your children about what's happening in this world. It's probably most important in these days than it may have been when some of us was growing up. And back to what'd you say?
Can I interject for 1 second?
Yes.
I will also say, because I was definitely a very different child. So my mom, both of our parents were strict, hands down. But I was the type that I did not want to talk about those things. Did not, I don't want to talk to my mom about it. I don't want to hear about it from her. And so what my mom ended up doing is leaving out the correct reading material. She would buy me books, and if you have any questions, we can talk about it. But a lot of that stuff, and of course, I have a younger brother, and he's the complete opposite. Like, he'll talk about anything with her. But so it's just goes to show that each child is different, and sometimes you have to reach your child the best way you can, and it's not always going to be the same as their sibling.
Absolutely. And see, she still got you, but just in a different kind of way.
No, she got me right.
Right. Definitely. That's definitely important. And definitely does speak to treating your kids accordingly. And then that brings us back to what you mentioned earlier about knowing the friends that your children have, because people let their kids do things these days that they really should not be doing, and it is not okay. And people have people in their homes that you don't know about, and all kinds of things are happening to children when they're spending the night or they're visiting people. I think a few months ago I seen that an 18-year-old was spending the night at her friend's house, and her and her friend was shot and killed. So you really have to know the history of the people that you are having your children around. And I think growing up, people did that more. Now people don't want to invade or make people feel like they're invading their space. But listen, if I don't know you like that, my child not coming over. In the way that the world is, even if I know you like that, my child still might not come over your house.
Amen.
Right. And that's just, it's just sad to really be honest. So definitely times have definitely changed. Is there anything you would like to add, Lena?
No, I think that's about it.
Anybody else got anything out there they want to add? I know somebody could tell me something about generational trauma. I definitely know somebody can tell me about the difference in which how they parent versus the way that their parents parented, or even just relationships, how we see relationships different than our parents may have seen things. No, it's quiet.
Well, I would say with me, I know that my grandmothers and my mom and aunts and uncles were kind of raised with the man being the provider and the breadwinner, and females doing a lot of the household stuff and with the kids. Now, I myself and most of my relationships have, for the majority of them, always made the most money. So, I do think that it was an adjustment for my family to get used to that. But, I have a lot of cousins in the same position who are the breadwinners. And so not seeing that as much growing up, but still being okay with that, I feel like that is a big kind of shift that's happened.
Right. So first of all, I just want to say we have a man lighting up the comments tonight, and it is making me excited because it's not all women giving perspective. So he's saying that people should learn to check their pride before entering into a relationship, and then he believes to what you were saying, that's an issue that he has personally in his family, and that I can definitely agree. If you go into a relationship all about pride, it's not going to really benefit you in a good way, because you're supposed to be in relationship with someone. You have to put your pride aside. It's supposed to be a partnership and a team effort, and that is not really good. I can definitely speak and agree with Lena. A majority of my relationships were the same way, where I was the breadwinner and I was always the one taking care of and doing things and bending over backwards for my relationships. And then now what has happened is when you get into a relationship with somebody who is meeting you halfway, who's saying, calm down, chill out, I got you, it is really kind of foreign and sometimes something that you really have to adjust to. But when you come from a long history of strong women handling things and doing things all by themselves, is definitely a work to be able to understand and receive someone who is bringing the same things to the table that you have, but it's definitely a good feeling.
Yes, I will. Amen to that. Amen to that. Preach.
Right. So definitely a lot of changes. And, the biggest thing about this topic is we could go so far and so deep when we talk about the many differences of why we are not our grandparents and why things are so different. And it could be a little bit sensitive as well, because people will be like, well, what you trying to say about your grandparents? Nobody's trying to say anything about our grandparents. Personally, I think our grandparents were amazing, and I hope to be the same way that our grandparents were when we were growing up, because they were a foundation for our family. They kept us unified. They taught us what helping and loving and being supportive and what family structure is like. So I hope to be part of what my grandmother is at her age of 96. But there's also things that our grandparents and their parents experience, because we're coming from years of slavery and learning to cope and deal with things that are different, and those are the things that taught our grandparents how to be parents or how to live in this world. So there's lots of cycles and a lot of changes that are continuously happening because they didn't have the same freedom and equality that we have today in this world.
And I will add to that, that even in those different times, it's amazing to look at all of our grandparents' achievements with the obstacles that they had, because they all were extremely successful business owners, homeowners, numerous homes. So, I mean, it does make us appreciate the fact that it is easier for us to obtain a lot of things that they really had to work hard and deal with a lot of obstacles to do.
Right. Definitely. I agree. So I made a mistake, not 96, 97. I'm getting corrected over here in the comments. But Jay said, do we believe our grandparents compromised more in their relationships than our generation now? Absolutely.
Yes.
So we kind of touched on that a little bit in the beginning when we talked about the difference with women, going out there and working and getting money, and now you have men becoming single parents, and that would never happen. And I think a lot of that compromise that women no longer do in relationships is because they can work to get their own. Now they're not waiting for the man to bring the meal to the table. The woman is bringing the meal, the house, and everything else to the table, and now they're looking at the men like, what you got to bring. So they don't compromise the same way that they used to. They don't tolerate things the same way that they used to. Nobody's around for all that cheating and domestic violence and whatever else that our grandparents used to tolerate back then, because I'm gonna go out there and get it on my own, because I don't need you, sir. I don't need you. I'm gonna handle this thing on my own. So I definitely think our grandparents compromise more than what we do now.
Well, I also think that men are reevaluating their priorities and what their standards are for a spouse as well. I mean, because there are, a lot of females that would probably traditionally like to stay at home and not have to work. And sometimes, you can't do that. So, I think men are, what are your career goals? What's your educational background? Well, how many kids do you want? What are you bringing to the table besides the fact that you're cute? Because cute is just not enough anymore.
Yes, cute don't pay the bills.
I mean, cute is just not enough anymore. And you being cute doesn't last if we don't match up on our goals and kind of our life path. And so I do think, and I think it's a good thing that men are having these conversations and talking about these things with potential spouses too, because they have their own criteria. There's a lot of females out here that cannot boil water. So it's like, oh, you can't cook? I'm just saying, I'm just thinking about some of the females out here. And but that's a requirement. If that's a requirement for this male, then you need to ask questions, because you don't want to be knee deep in it and then you're bitter because you're cooking all the time.
Right. And I think that again speaks to probably some of the generational trauma, because you have men who've seen their mothers be single parents and struggle to take care of them. And they want to make choices not to have babies with the bitter baby mama, or things like that. So they're being more careful about their approach and the things that they're doing. So what do we have here? We said, how do you feel about stay-at-home husbands? Ooh, that's a good. Can it work with the wife being the breadwinner? Our society looks down upon men who want to stay at home and take care of the house instead of work. I say this: if the man can cook and clean and take care of the kids and do all the same things that a woman does, which he can, and it is a choice for that couple, for the man to stay home and for the woman to go out there and get it, I say do what works for you. Everybody in society has so much time trying to judge and give opinions and perspectives on other people's relationships. They can't even get their own relationship right. I say go for it. Let him be a stay-at-home husband. Hey, she may come home to him in an apron and some boxes. Why not? You know, to each his own.
I mean, I definitely don't have a problem with it if you're holding down the household. You know what I mean? But then, you know, I'm a different breed. If you cooking, you cleaning, I don't have a problem with it. Taking care of kids, that's fine with me. But that goes back to say that, you know, people have to design their relationship to fit themselves and not worry about what other people think. Are they in your relationship? No. So you let them have their opinions and just don't absorb them.
Right. And that's like, you see, a lot of studies have spoken to the fact that being a parent is a full-time job alone. When you're talking about taking care of the kids, and cooking and cleaning and doing laundry, and that's a whole day job. So imagine working, you know, those 40 hours a week, some people 60 hours a week, and still having to maintain and do that. So if a situation presents for somebody to be able to stay home and maintain that full job of the household, and that's what works, I say go for it, because Lord Jesus, when I get that rich, it's going down. Okay. Either that or we hire
interesting aspect is that, you know, I do think that because we never know what life is going to hand us, that even if the spouse that wants to stay at home, you know, should be able to have a plan if they have to work. Because sometimes, you know, the breadwinner gets sick. Then what? You know what I mean? You have to be able to switch into that role if, you know, your life situations kind of, you have to in order to take care of the family.
That is very, very true. Because as we know, things happen in life when you least expect it. And if you don't have a plan for the plan, you will definitely get knocked off of your seat and you will not be able to pick up. But that's the whole thing. Why when you become an entrepreneur, when things go down, you always have an opportunity to fall back on, you know, multiple streams of income. So then that way, no matter what happens, the money will keep flowing into the household. So that is all that we have for this evening. Before we close out, is there any questions or any more comments that anyone would like to share?
I guess the only thing that I would like to say, since you just did bring it up with the entrepreneur and multiple streams of income, is that a big difference too, generationally, not necessarily with our grandparents, but I see it with a lot of other families, is that, you know, work a job until it's time to retire, and then you retire. Not as much of, you know, that entrepreneurial spirit of like, you know, I'm not going to work for nobody. I want to do my own thing. I want to build, you know, generational wealth and my legacy, where I feel like our generation is really focused on doing that.
Right. That is very true. So we do have one more question that popped up, and he said, okay, last question. What advice would you give to another couple when it comes to social media? Do you believe you should have the right to privacy? Do you think social media causes some relationships to fail due to it? Oh boy. So this one is definitely a loaded one. So I always say this when it comes to social media, we have to remember it is social media, but we also have to remember that some people get on social media and do things that they should not be doing. I personally feel like you should not be posting and saying things on social media that you know will make your spouse, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your partner, or whatever, upset. Okay, you have to know your person. If you know your person is not with it, don't do it. Okay, if you know your person will read a Facebook post or see somebody's comment on Facebook and not feel any kind of way, then you handle your relationship accordingly. I think everybody should have a certain level of privacy, because we are individuals and we need to remember to be individuals. But it definitely should not be a situation in which you have to give up all of your identity, all of your passwords to your partner because they're insecure about something. So I think it really varies on your person. For me, you want the password, go ahead, pick up the phone, answer the phone, respond to the text, write to the post. I don't have anything to hide. But a lot of times when it becomes this whole thing about you're in my space, you're in my business, sometimes people have things to hide, and that really varies. Are you dealing with an insecure person, or are you being sneaky? It really kind of varies. I'm silly, so I play around on Facebook. I post a lot of stuff on Facebook. Well, a little bit less now that I'm trying to focus more on business stuff, but my person could get real confused when I'm posting things on Facebook if they don't know who I am, or if they are not solid and comfortable with our relationship. It can go really bad. I'm not, Lena, you have any input?
Well, I think it depends on whether or not there's been any infidelity issues previously, because I feel like, a lot of times, that's when people will want to look at their social media, or look at phones as if there's been an issue like that in the past. I think that social media has made it hard on relationships because of the access to so many people at any given time at the drop of a dime. And so you have to just be solid in your partner.
Right. And a lot of times people are not solid, but they put on for social media that they are solid, and they have a whole lot of issues behind the scenes. So I say, if you are in a relationship in which you are having issues, it might be better for you not to be friends on social media. If you have an insecure partner, it might be best for you not to be friends on social media. But then that may cause a whole nother problem, because they want to know now why you don't want to be friends with them on social media. So the best bet is to be careful what you post, because you're going to have to deal with the aftermath of that post. And you really just shouldn't be on Facebook or any social media anyways, just being outright disrespectful to your partner when you have someone at home, because you wouldn't want them to do that to you.
Well, I do. And I also think that, some partners need to realize that even if you post something, you can't control who likes and comments on that. So, you know what I mean? It's like, so I think they need to be secure in that as well.
That's funny. He said, I could go on, but I'll cut it there for y'all. Peace and love to you both. Great show. Thank you so much for the support. Thank you for bringing some male energy for us tonight. So so we are going to go ahead and wrap it up. And of course, as always, you can continue to comment on the live streams replays. We will comment as things come up, and we will post probably some more information as the week goes on, talking about generational trauma and how to break those cycles of we are not our grandparents. as we all know, the holidays are coming up. We're not really sure what that looks like, but you will be hearing from us. So stay tuned for more to come. And we are hoping definitely in the new year to bring some people on to have y'all live with us and hear some perspectives and even possibly educate the community.
Yes.
That is it. That is all. And remember, it's your life and our advice, and we are not responsible for what you do with the advice
that we give you.
Right. Have a great evening, everyone. Thank you for joining.
Thank you for joining.